Well, I tell you, it's absolutely a pleasure to welcome everyone to this second of our major career awareness seminars for this year's program, and it gives me a really great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jamal Scobie. Dr. Scobie is I feel like, and I just want to say Jamal, so I'm going to say it, but
Please do. Yes.
um, I listen. It's been, oh my God, 20 plus years in the transportation sector. He is a senior program director with the Transportation Research Board, which is a part of the National Academy of Sciences, and he's going to get into a little description of the of TRB and the National Academy of Sciences framework. But he's just done tremendous work, public-private sector, research, analysis, you name it. Okay, with I think probably over about 100 transit projects. Okay, we've had the great pleasure I have for sure over the last just 20 plus years, and his doctorate is from Texas Southern University. But I've had the pleasure of really directly working with him in Atlanta and also in Boston. Okay, and I think it's been over 100 different transit projects that you have worked on, consummate research and planner, very centered in equity-centered work, as well as I would say transportation demand management, analysis of new business models. Yeah, just really, it's been a very, very, very very rich background. And the big thing is with actionable projects for communities. Okay. And so with that, thank you very, very much. And I think it's been what, a little bit over a year with TRB. Okay.
Yes, a year and a half.
Oh my God, does time passes. It goes time time flies. And what he's going to do is, like I said, is to really go through, he's going to talk about his career, okay? But he's really going to go through, and I asked him, would he really help to open up the world of the Transportation Research Board and the National Academies of Sciences, which is a major, major research arm in well, actually internationally, but certainly here in the United States. And every year, so he's going to go through and give you a good overview, speak very specifically to programs that they have that are more youth centered, or looking at those who are interested in or just joining the transportation industry. So you can just kind of get a flavor of TRB is not just a stodgy, oh, you've been around for a long time, that there really is a real place at the table for those who are what we would call beginners. Okay. And then the other thing is to actually go through and talk about some of the work that's underway at TRB. And every year they actually will take a look industry wide, both in the US and globally, and really try to help identify what are industry wide critical issues. And so we thought, particularly with the focus that we have in terms of problem solving in communities, selection of innovation challenge projects, that this would be a really good framing a conversation in front end, just so you could get to hear about what are some of the things from an industry-wide perspective that are considered to be like real major challenges for everybody. So with that, Jamal, Dr. Scobie, it gives me a pleasure to turn it over to you. And if you would just take it away.
Cool. Thank you, Dr. Scott, for that lovely introduction. I know you've been my mentor and have taught me so much about the transit industry over the past like 20 years. It's hard to believe, 2005, that I started my career down at Texas Southern with one of your other compadres, Dr. Carol Lewis. So you are my two pioneers in transit, and I am lucky to have both you and Dr. Lewis as my mentors who both started from their careers in Houston, Texas. So I'm your
Yeah.
prodigy.
That's it. And Carol, Dr. Lewis just was just past year, she was the chair, okay,
Yes.
of TRB at TRB. So she's really had a very storied I remembered her when we were both youngsters back in the 70s, and she was consummate planner. So she got you, she marked you, okay. I'm saying she was she was a senior planner, and then she ultimately wound up having the entire planning department, and then being on the board, being an advisor for the city of Houston, just all kind of things. And then, of course, the transportation, the Urban Resources Center at Texas Southern University. And I think it's probably one of the longest standing
Yeah.
university transit centers in the country, because I know in the 70s they were there. Okay,
Yeah.
so just doing great work, and of course having great graduates. So I'll turn it back to you now.
Oh, thanks. So yes,
Yeah.
I am a senior program manager at the National Academy's Transportation Research Board. I manage the transit synthesis program, which is kind of looking at hot topics in the industry, artificial intelligence, automation, microtransit, and what are kind of quick studies that transit agencies need to learn from their peers to solve those issues today. So I oversee a portfolio of about 20 research projects throughout the nation, throughout the country, where I work with subject matter experts and consultants, overseeing about 30 something consultants and research project panels, 8 to 10 subject matter experts to help guide the research. Also, I worked with Dr. Scott in the past with Aya on the critical conversations of public transportation frontline worker crisis report, where I led focus groups with transit agencies and the youth 2 years ago, and identifying how can we attract a younger workforce to the transportation, in particular transit agencies. Kind of finding that we got to focus on work-life balance and incentives similar to the public sector. So kind of marrying my day job, transit research to solve transit problems and preparing for the next generation, which is a passion of mine, I came up with today's webinar, Fostering Transportation Innovation and Research, the Next Generation and Workforce Readiness. So basically, how do we prepare the next generation for tomorrow's transportation? So I've divided this webinar into 5 main parts, like Dr. Scott mentioned. I'm going to kind of give a high overview of the National Academy's Transportation Research Board and talk about all the various programs that go on, in particular the Dwight Eisenhower Fellowship, which is adjacent to the TRB. And then I'll discuss some of the research fields, opportunities, and resources available. Then I'll move into the Critical Issues in Transportation report, which was published last year, identifying the 5 kind of critical issues in transportation that we need to address to have a thriving society. Then kind of glaze over, kind of touch on preparing for the bus of the future. So it kind of all ties in with innovation. How do we prepare for the bus of the future? And then I'll end with identifying kind of the careers in transportation that are needed. We have traditional careers, which I'll discuss, and we have careers they're in demand at transit agencies that are needed. So I'll touch on those as well. So the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, kind of short, NACIM's kind of the short, is the parent organization to the Transportation Research Board. Now, NACIM stretches back over 100 years and was actually established by President Abraham Lincoln during the height of the Civil War to conduct all things science-related research throughout the nation and advise the federal government. In the 1960s, 2 other branches were established. The National Academies of Engineering, which focuses on engineering-based research throughout the nation, and medical research, which was established in 1969. So today, these 3 academies, sciences, engineering, medicine, make up the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. If we come down, like I mentioned, Transportation Research Board is one of the 7 divisions within the National Academies of Sciences and Engineering and Medicine, particularly under the sciences umbrella. So TRB's mission is to provide timely research that is evidence-based and provides advice on all modes of transportation. That is the highways and roadways that you use every day, the airports that you go to fly out of, to go on group trips, family trips, or with your spouses. And also transit, which I'm kind of biased to, and Dr. Scott is. I've been in the transit industry almost all of my professional career. So that is where the focus of this webinar will be as I focus more on transit, the Transit and Cooperative Research Program, which is where I work at the National Academies of Science, doing all things transit research. Like I mentioned in my opening, that involves how do we plan for equitable transit systems? How do we use service technology such as microtransit to increase access in your cities? Then we have more of these protecting from cyber attacks at agencies, a hot topic. Artificial intelligence, which I'm pretty sure you're familiar with, ChatGPT. So a lot of agencies are grappling with how do we incorporate artificial intelligence into operational practice to enhance operations and automation. AVs, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with as well, autonomous vehicles. So those are kind of the gamut of what the Transportation Research Board, in particular, Transit to Copper Research Program does transit research-wise. And now I'm going to mention the Transportation Research Board's annual meeting. For more than 100 years, every January in Washington, D.C., the TRB convenes what is known as the largest transportation research conference in the world. This year, 2025, we had about over 13,000 transportation professionals from all over the world. While the most folks are from the United States, you'll meet people from as far as Australia, Africa, Asia, all come here for the week-long transportation event in Washington, D.C. At this TRB annual meeting, it showcases the latest transportation innovations for all modes, as I mentioned. How do we innovate America's transportation system? Like I mentioned earlier, how do we innovate highways, construction, adapting driverless semi-trucks on the roadways? Aviation, how do you redesign airports to enhance the customer experience at airports? Transit, like I mentioned, artificial intelligence, automation are all the things that you can expect to experience at a TRB annual meeting. So what are the benefits for young folks? I know a lot of these conferences, if you've been before, they're kind of intimidating. You see a lot of folks that are mingling that have known each other for years. However, there is a space for young professionals at the TRB meeting. Look at the kind of bottom of the screen. There are committee meetings. Every subject matter that I mentioned, I didn't mention all of them, but all the subject matters that you can think of within the transportation space, there's a committee for that. And the committees meet for anywhere from an hour to a couple of hours during this TRB meeting and discuss kind of like hot topics and identify future research needs. As a pointer, each committee is mandated to have 2 persons under the age of 35 to be on their committee. So if you're interested, you can, if you're at this TRB annual meeting, you can go to a committee meeting and sign up, and hopefully there are 2 slots available that can be allocated to a young professional. So I encourage you to check out any topic that you're interested in. And if you're at one of the annual meetings, stop by one of the committee meetings. There's also exhibit halls. So vendors from all across the world come with the latest transportation innovations. And there's an exhibit hall of probably more than 100 exhibitors on any given time at the exhibit hall showcasing their latest innovations in transportation, i.e. the buses of the future. So they bring in buses and other vehicles that you can test out that have not hit the market yet, but you get a preview of what's to come in the transportation space. I would say career fairs. Young professionals are always looking for that next job and always looking to get into the industry. So TRB sets up career fairs at the annual conference where you can talk to recruiters and HR professionals. Sometimes they bring their HR representatives to the annual meeting and you can talk to them on the spot about their hiring needs. Some of them have internships, apprenticeships, young career development programs, and the list goes on that you can talk to face and potentially get a on-site interview, or you can get a follow-up interview that can discuss more opportunities at that agency, or the recruiter or HR person can direct you to someone else based on your interests. And I'll say lastly, expand your professional network. You probably heard the term throughout life. It's all about who you know. that is the case here in the transportation industry as well. You're guaranteed to meet new people inside your bubble and outside your bubble. So TRB offers the opportunity to expand your professional network of meeting people that become lifelong friends or people that can connect you to people who can connect you to the right person for that next career opportunity. In the right-hand corner, you can use your phone or smart or tablet to scan a QR code, and it can take you to the landing page of TRB annual meeting to get more information on the meeting and all the elements that I discussed here. Now, another opportunity for young professionals is the Dwight David Eisenhower Transportation Fellow, which I didn't mention in my bio. However, 20 years, I've done a lot in 20 years. I was a Dwight Eisenhower Fellow when I was a graduate student at Texas Southern University. So Dwight Eisenhower Fellowship is actually hosted by the Federal Highway Administration, which is a arm that TRB works with. And it's the largest grant program that provides funding to undergraduate and graduate students throughout the nation to pursue any higher degree in a transportation related discipline. So with that, you can go to any school of your choice, as long as your degree is in a transportation related discipline. And we'll talk about those disciplines a little bit later here. And you conduct innovative research. So the goal is to conduct innovative research to provide to an industry that you can use as a selling point to get your next job or to start your own company or whatnot. The world is the limits. So Dwight Eisenhower advances the transportation workforce by helping to attract the nation's brightest minds to the field of transportation, encouraging future transportation professionals to seek advanced degrees in transportation, which is needed to help train a new pipeline of talent and to help retain top talent. So we want to make sure that we retain the top and brightest talent here in the United States. So as an incentive of being a Dwight Eisenhower Fellow, the good part, we always like things that are free. The program pays for your tuition, either partial or full tuition, gives you a monthly stipend, which ranges every year to year based on funding, and pays for your all expense paid trip to Washington DC to attend the TRB annual conference. And at that conference, if you're selected, as you see the top screen and in the bottom, you can present your research that you are conducting at your university to the thousands of people that are at the conference. For more information, you can use your phone or tablet once again to scan the QR code in the corner, and it will give you more information about the Dwight Eisenhower Fellowship and how it's connected to TRB. Being a little biased, now I'm going to move into transit, the Transit Cooperative Research Program, which is one of the umbrella agencies within TRB. So Transportation Cooperative Research Program was established in 1992 based with a memorandum of agreement between FTA and APTA and TRB. So basically what TCRP is designed to develop near-term practical solutions that face the problem that the transit agency faces. So what do I mean by that? The key word here is practical. So through research, identify solutions that can be applied to transit agencies today. I know Dr. Scott talked about sometimes it can take 18 months for a project to hit the streets. Well, agencies and everyone wants to answer today. So while we can't guarantee 18 months, 12 months, 24 months, the point of the TCRP program is to identify solutions that, let's say readily, that agencies, we have some solutions that are readily available for transit agencies to implement at their local provider. So kind of the goals of TCRP are solve the problem that transit agencies are encountering, i.e., how can we solve for preventing cyber attacks that some agencies here are starting to grapple with? I know SEPTA in Philadelphia have had issues with cyber attacks. Introduce innovation to the public transit industry. Like I mentioned, a lot of agencies are dealing with how to adopt AI into their agency. How can they use AI to enhance transit operations? and adapt appropriate new technologies into operation. Automation. How do we train and adapt to autonomous vehicles? That is another big technology that is evolving within the industry. So agencies are trying to grapple with that. So TCRP basically helps solve problems, introduce innovation, and adapt to new technologies that can be used throughout the transit industry. Real briefly, I'll discuss how TCRP works. Like I mentioned in previous slides, we have the National Academies of Science, Engineering, Medicine, Transportation Research Board. They manage the TCRP. They're basically my employer. However, TCRP is governed by what we call the Transit TOPS Commission. They are a panel of 26 transit executives from transportation agencies, consultant firms, research centers, unions throughout the nation who basically are a governing body to identify research needs and set funding levels. If you look at the left hand, we have the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration, which is the sponsor of the program, basically provides the annual grant and provides program oversight to TCRP. Then if we come back down a little bit to the darker blue, TCRP basically manages the research program. So we conduct all of the research. We can't do this alone. We work with two industry partners, American Public Transportation Association, which is our link to the transit agency, to the transit industry, basically APTA. They help us identify transit problems. We also partner with the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, COMTO, which helps us disseminate the research to the transit industry. And if we go to the bottom row, we rely on numerous stakeholders to complete a transit project. First one is a senior program officer, which is myself. I work on all aspects of the project from initiation to publication. I also work for each project that I have in my portfolio. I work to identify whatever the topic is. So let's say microtransit operations. I work to identify 8 to 10 subject matter experts surrounding microtransits. I need someone who does planning, operation, data analysis, research to build a panel of subject matter experts that can guide the research. Then I work with that project team panel and we develop a request for a proposal, put the request on the street and review proposals and select the contractor to do the work. Lastly, there's other stakeholders behind the scenes, procurement department, accounting, and editors also go into making a transit project successful. So you say, what are these research fields? So there are 9 research fields that TCRP does research under. I won't go through all of them, but I'll just call out some of the hot topic ones. Research field A is kind of like all things operational research. So kind of what are innovative strategies to ensure operators maintain safety and security while out on the roads and operating in unpredictable environments and always changing environments. Research field B, service configuration, is one of the most popular research fields. That is research on planning. So how do we plan for these innovative transit services that I mentioned previous slides? We can skip down to research field D, engineering of fixed facilities. How do we plan for LEED certified buildings? If we go to research field F, human resources, that involves recruitment and training. So you hear a lot of under the workforce development umbrella is how do we employ innovative strategies to recruit and retrain not just the traditional professionals in the transportation space, but how do we recruit and train the younger generation? Mm-hmm. And lastly, under research field G, administration. One of the fields under there is law. So what new legislation, with all these innovative technologies that are being implemented throughout the transportation industry and the world, what new legislation is needed or what legislation needs to be updated to make sure these transit innovations are compliant within federal regulations. So I kind of touched on involvement opportunities with participating at the TRB annual meeting and participating as a Dwight Eisenhower. And as you grow as a young professional, there's kind of four other ways that you can be involved with TRB. And not just think about not just TCRB, but TRB as a whole. You can propose new research. There's no age limits. There's no there's no age limit on a person who cannot recommend any new research. We welcome new research ideas from younger generations. A lot of the research ideas comes from persons that are, say, seasoned in the field. But going forward, we would like to welcome new research ideas from a younger generation of the research that you think that is needed. And I know it can be hard sometimes to get your foot wet, your foot in the industry. One of the ways that you could probably do that is link up with a mentor, someone who you know has been in the industry for a number of years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years in your community. You can find those at your local agencies, um, kind of volunteering in your local community, getting to know what are kind of the hot topics in transportation, not just in the US, but in your community. What is kind of the mayor's city council direction? Kind of learn and hear from what their direction is transportation wise, and kind of formulate your own ideas like, this is be a research opportunity that has not been talked about in my local community that I think needs addressing. So we welcome all new research. Serve as a panel member, like I mentioned before, we create panel members of subject matter experts. I will say we're also looking to have younger members on our panel members. Most of the panels that are formulated are repeat panel members who have served on multiple panel members for years. I will throw in a caveat that I don't have many young professionals to sit on panel members, probably because they're unaware of the opportunities or they don't think they have any value to bring. But I will say, everyone has a value to contribute to any research project. You just have to kind of find what is your niche and what is your contribution to society. So there's opportunities for you to serve as a panel member. There is no age restriction. There is no minimum qualifications. If you're going to serve on a panel, you do have to have some kind of experience. So that can kind of, once you get your foot wet a couple years into the industry, you can also volunteer to serve as a panel member on any project that you're interested in. Conduct the research. Like I mentioned in Dwight Eisenhower Fellowship, as a graduate student, there's what we call the Synthesis Program, which I didn't go into too much detail on this webinar today. But the Synthesis Program are quick studies that are $75,000 that are usually conducted by 1 or 2 man shops, 2 man or woman shops. Up to $75,000 is what you're allocated for that research. And that can be done by graduate students. So if you're pursuing a graduate degree, most times you have to write a master's or just a master's thesis or a dissertation. One opportunity is to grow your research. So to apply to be a contractor to a TCRP, using your same research as a foundation to grow upon and get paid to conduct the research. And lastly, you can serve as an ambassador. All of the transportation programs, transit, aviation, highways have what we call ambassadors. And these people are passionate about the transportation industry, passionate about research and innovation, and passionate about spreading the word on the latest research and innovation that's out there. So TCRP Academies actually pays for you to be an ambassador, usually a 2 to 3 year term commitment. And you go to 2 to 3 transportation conferences throughout the year. Your employer has to approve it, but TRB pays for your travel, hotel, and all that. And you go work one of our transit booths and you promote the latest research in transit to other persons at the conference who are unaware of TRB and who might need some resources on the latest transit research out there. So what resources are available today? The main resource here is our publications. So you can use once again, your phone or your tablet and scan the QR code in the corner, and it would take you to the landing page to download publications by TRB, dating back all the way to the inception. Every project, every final report is uploaded on our landing page. So once you scan it, it should take you to this landing page, and you can put in a search. There's a search bar that comes up, and you can type in whatever topic you are interested in. So for sake of today, I typed in innovation and workforce. Returned that there are 40 publications throughout the National Academies, TRB, on the deal with innovation and workforce. So what you do, you can read them all. You can scroll down and read the report online without having to download it. You can just kind of scroll through, or you can download the PDF to your local device, save for later, print it out, read it at the park, or read it on a plane, or save it as a resource in the future. Hopefully I mentioned this before, but all the resources are free. So this is free. So we have all this research that is done that is sponsored by FTA. So FTA, your tax dollar does pay for it in the back end. However, the research implementation and best practices are available free to anyone. 3 other quick resources that I'm going to touch on are weekly newsletter. So TRB puts out a weekly e-newsletter, and you can register for that. Use your phone or smart tablet, and you can scan in here, and it will take you to the landing page where you can subscribe to get the weekly newsletter, and it will send you every Tuesday weekly recent publications, upcoming events and webinars that are upcoming, participation opportunities that are available at TRB and whatnot. We also host webinars for any of the research projects. Every month there is a webinar hosted for recently published projects. So for instance, this was a webinar on ADA paratransit that was hosted last year. So the contractor and usually this senior program officer who managed the project, they host about anywhere from a 90-minute webinar to discuss the research background, why research was undertaken, methodology, case studies, and research findings and future research needs. So you can watch those live if you subscribe to the weekly TRB weekly newsletter to tell you what's upcoming, or they are all archived on the TRB website on the webinar page. And then we also have podcasts. I'm biased to that. One of my favorites. I think a lot of people are overwhelmingly, especially younger generation. We love to listen to our podcast. So anywhere on your Apple store, or I'm not an Android person. I think it's called Android. Yeah, Android, the Android store, I think. Play Store, Google Play Store, the Google Play Store for Android users. You can download TCRP podcasts, and it's kind of similar to the webinars, where for each research project, I say each, for most research projects, we invite the contractor and the senior program officer to come on and kind of do the same format that they did with the webinar, talk through what was the research need, their methodology, the case studies they did, and what they found from agencies, and kind of the key findings and the way ahead. So once again, you can use the QR code, and it will take you to the landing page for downloading to your phone or your tablet the app that you would need to use for the podcast. So now I'm going to move on to critical issues in transportation. So every year, TRB publishes what we call critical issues in transportation. The latest iteration was published last year. It's titled Critical Issues in Transportation in 2024 and Beyond. So as you see in the chart here, kind of touches on all the themes that are identified in the latest iteration of the report. The second row, so basically highlighting is how do we achieve a thriving society? Pretty sure you've heard that term if you're at school, on the TV, and on the internet, everyday talking. There's kind of this talk out there. How do we achieve a thriving society in the United States? Well, the report identifies 5 vitally important societal goals that need to be addressed today if we want to achieve a thriving society in the future. And that's going to touch on 5 of those goals real fast. First is building and maintaining a strong competitive economy, which is transit is the backbone of cities. So transit is needed there to help stimulate the economy and get people to jobs and to invest and use the local economy. Also, mitigating and responding to climate change. Pretty sure you hear climate change a lot in the news lately. So how do we address for mitigating the issues, the impacts of climate change throughout all of the decades? Increasing roadway safety. So as I mentioned earlier, we're having all of these new kind of innovative transportation that is on the highway now. We used to just have cars that are driven by people. Now we're having cars that are driven by computers, in addition to cars still driven by people. So how do we accommodate for all of this on the roadways? Advancing public health. We just came out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some people say it's over, but coming out of COVID-19, how do we address for the public health? And lastly, equity. Promoting equity inclusion. How do we ensure we have an equitable transportation network throughout the country? So while transportation is essential for achieving all of these societal goals, I'm going to focus on 2. If we go down to the bottom, right-hand corner, workforce. So how do we attract and retain a diverse workforce, which is kind of the theme throughout this webinar today. And innovation is kind of the second theme that is in this webinar today. How do we foster and implement innovation throughout the nation? So if you kind of see together, how do we we got to plan for all these innovative changes and transportation that are coming, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we have a workforce readiness that is ready to design, implement the changes that are coming in transportation. So fostering and implementing innovation. So fostering and implementing cultures of innovation at transportation agencies and private firms will help move us toward achieving societal goals. So kind of a guiding question here is, what are the best practices in building and sustaining cultures of innovation at government transportation agencies? So there's kind of key areas that are identified in critical issues report. Some of these I've mentioned before, but how do we prepare for autonomous vehicles? So AI and machine learning are driving the development of self-driving cars and buses, and it can be promising to revolutionize personal transportation. So basically, how do we travel? Right now, I know there's new talk I heard of autonomous airplanes, which is a lot throwing people off like, whoa, you would never want to get in an airplane without a pilot. That's kind of far-fetched, but once upon a time, driverless cars were very kind of far-fetched, but now they are here on the horizon. So how do we accommodate for those? Electric mobility. There's a big shift towards electric vehicles and electric buses at transit agencies, along with the advancements in battery technology and charging infrastructure are crucial for reducing emissions and promoting sustainable transportation. Alternative transportation, innovations in areas like high-speed rail, maglev, urban air mobility, which are flying taxis, are also ways that are being used, or innovative technologies and transportations that are being used to connect cities and regions more efficiently. We have transportation management system, which is known as TMS, are software solutions that help businesses manage and optimize their transportation operations, which can lead to cost savings and increased efficiency, which is kind of the top of the mind for leaders at not just transportation agencies, but most leaders in any organization are how do you cut costs and increase efficiency at the same time. So TMS, transportation management systems, are helping to solve that problem. And a new one, the Internet of Things in transportation, abbreviated with IoT, enables real-time data collection and analysis, which allows for better decision making and optimizing operations in transportation. That kind of goes into artificial intelligence. So AI can give transit agencies data in real time, whereas when I was coming up and Dr. Scott was coming up, we kind of had to do that all manually, collect your data by pen, paper. Then we evolved into on a computer. So now, and then you have to have a human factor to come in and analyze a lot of data and write the results and prepare a report and prepare a presentation. Now with Internet of Things and AI, you are able, transit agencies are there. We can say it's pretty much there to where transit agencies can install computers, which are already pretty much on the vehicles, and receive data in real time to analyze the data and make adjustments in planning and operations on the spot. So these are some top innovations in transportation that are driving the next generation of mobility, which requires a diverse workforce.
Mm.
So attracting and retraining a diverse workforce for the future. So to design and implement these technological advancements in transportation, I go back to we need a diverse workforce. That means people from all walks of life based on gender, age, disability, sexual orientation, uh, based on languages, your personality, educational levels, military service, family status, any walk of life. We need as many people of different backgrounds with different perspectives at the table going forward to help plan for the innovations that are coming in the transportation industry.
Mm.
So today, public transit agencies across the country are experiencing serious workforce shortages, not just in transit, but in all industries. But the focus of this webinar is transit. Previous reports from TCRP, tongue twister there, and APTA have conducted a lot of research on addressing the workforce shortage problem. And because kind of some statistics there, Dr. Scott, as we kind of talked about in our previous report, critical frontline employees, that is our bus operators, rail operators, maintenance employees, they are the backbone of transit agencies. And they have a median age, I think it was 53 years old a couple years ago. So that's approaching retirement. So if you have almost 80% of your workforce in a 50 plus age arena, that means what? We need to prepare for a younger workforce or the next generation workforce, not just to maintain services of today and the current technologies of today, but to plan and to implement the technologies that I've talked about in previous slides that are up on the horizon. So implementing these innovations depends on attracting and retaining a diverse workforce that is skilled from across multiple disciplines. And I'll touch on some of these disciplines coming up here in a second. I will note that the challenges and opportunities in the transit industries offer rewarding careers that are great. They're as great as the need to attract the talented people into the field. So what I mean by that is transit has not been looked upon as the most lucrative industry, the most glamorous, but there's opportunities here, especially as we move into these more what we call sexier transportation terms or sexier transportation innovations, autonomous vehicles. That's woo. Um, Electric vehicles, woo. All these, they're kind of the sexier vehicles out there that people like. So how can transit agents, so there's opportunity for transit industry to look at all of these innovations that are seen as being sexy in a society, and how do we make transit more sexier and appealing?
Mhm.
So what is required? In addition to documenting the best practices for attracting, training, and retaining a diverse skilled workforce in the public sector, um, what do we need to do to ensure we prepare for a diverse and skilled workforce? It's kind of the overarching question. So that was the critical issues in transportation report published by TRB. You can once again use your phone or tablet to scan the QR code, and it would take you to the report to download and read at your leisure. Now I'm going to discuss the bus of the future. So kind of tying this all in, I've talked about innovations in transportation that are on the horizon and preparing for workforce readiness. So we have the bus of the future that can be divided into four categories, kind of designing for that bus of the future. And we have safety and security. Um, Operators out there on the road are known for having to deal with unpredictable climates, unpredictable people, unpredictable environments. And there's this big push now to make sure the operator is safe. So how do we keep our operators safe while they are out there on the road? Also, we have mental health and well-being, which is on the forefront now. So a lot of agencies are making sure that they can reduce the job-related stressors on operation staff. Once again, to come along with being out on the road and having to sit in traffic and deal with the public on the day in, day out. Incentives. What incentives can be provided to attract operators? We live in a very competitive um, market these days where you don't just need um, people just are not going to like 9 to 5 jobs anymore. As long as you have internet, I say nowadays, internet and a laptop, you can pretty much set up shop and work from home or start your own business or be an entrepreneur. But at the same time, we still need to make sure that transportation and transit agencies in particular have the workforce they needed to supply service. So with that, what incentives can transit agencies use to attract more people to, or in particular operators to their agency? And I'll talk about some of those on the next slide. And lastly, new technologies, which has been a theme of this webinar. What training or new skills are needed to prepare for the bus of the future? So we have autonomous buses coming, AVs. We have electric buses coming. How do transit agencies make sure that their operators are up to date on operating these new buses that are coming for the future? So preparing the transit workforce for the bus of the future. There's been some recent research published by TCRP that kind of focuses on getting ready for the bus of the future. Going back to the themes, automation, autonomous vehicles, electrification, EVs, and artificial intelligence. So kind of we have transit agencies has to look into retraining their workforce. That means not just the operators, but the planners, mechanics, and dispatchers. It takes multiple disciplines and employees to work together. They all have to be retrained on these new technologies that are up and coming. Redesigning the bus. There's a big focus on redesigning buses to make sure, and we can kind of group in reimagining the role of operator, making sure that operators, like I mentioned in previous slides, are safe and secure, addressing their mental health concerns, and offering incentives for employees. Like I mentioned before in the previous slide, there's a big push now that agencies are offering incentives such as hiring bonuses, work-life balance to make sure that they can accommodate in particular, the operations and maintenance staff. But these kind of incentives have already been in place for more of the more administrative roles, such as for the planners. So how do we make sure we have same incentives for our operators and mechanics that we offer other employees to prepare for the bus of the future? Another big focal point on the bus of the future is, like I mentioned before, safeguarding mental health and safety. Here at the National Academies, there's been quite a few research publications recently, and I'll discuss some of those on the next slide that are in public in development on making sure we safeguard the mental health and safety of our um, transit employees, in particular operation staff. So how do we protect the physical safety of frontline staff and passengers? A lot of agencies are dealing with a lot of basically crime is on the rise out there, and a lot of agencies are dealing with crime on their property and in particular on their vehicles. So how do we make sure and how can we um, ensure that our operators in particular are safe while they're out there driving for the agency? I'll skip down to develop health and wellness programs. In the previous research that I've worked on, a lot of agencies are developing health and wellness programs, i.e. having gyms on site, offering massages for employees, um, more therapy for their backs, in particular for these operators who are having to sit for long periods of time. I'll skip down to provide training. Um, as a young person, you think you go through what K through 12 or go to an apprenticeship, get a degree, and training is over. That's all the training you're gonna need. No, training is continuous and ever evolving as we learn for these new technologies. Like I mentioned, artificial intelligence, EVs. We're going to have to continuously train not just operators, but the whole workforce to adapt to these new technologies that are on the rise. And lastly, improving trust, empathy, and communication. We need to, I wouldn't say no one's not communicating well, but making sure that we have open dialogues and communication between the agency, what is the direction of the agency, your managers are being more open and forward with their employers to make sure there's two-way trust and communication. Once that trust and communication is broken, that kind of creates what we can call a hostile work environment per se. However, if there's good open communication between employer and employee, you're more likely to get a better work product, better work life, and a better work life out of your employees. So here's just continue along with the theme of training for innovative transit, health and well-being, safety and security, or some other research that is on the horizon here at TRB National Academies. We have under safety and security, research ongoing on mitigating strategies for deterring transit assaults. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, a lot of agencies are dealing with assault on operators. So how do we accommodate for that? Under the training for innovative transit umbrella, how do we enhance transit operations using artificial intelligence? One of the first studies, recruiting and retaining individuals with disabilities. That goes back into the theme of making sure that there's persons from all walks of life at the table as we plan systems out. So making sure, how do we recruit and retrain persons with individuals at your agencies? How do you plan for zero emission vehicles, new tech, new skills, and new jobs? Once again, under the theme, we have zero emission vehicles coming along, uh, i.e., i.e., electric vehicles. They're coming along. So how do we plan for those? That's another guidebook coming out. Under health and well-being, we have culture reform, psychological health and safety at the workplace. Optimizing work schedules for transit frontline workers. That kind of goes under the work-life balance. The work-life balance kind of incentive. So basically, transit operators, you get a schedule. It could be on the road for hours at a time or block shifts. But how do we accommodate for work-life balance? How do we optimize work schedules that are bothly beneficial to the employer, the transit agency, making sure they have service on the streets to meet the demands of persons within the service area, and at the same time, how do we design these schedules to make sure that the frontline employees, i.e. operators, are able to enjoy a work-life balance. So once again, you can use your smartphone or tablet to scan the QR code in the bottom of the screen, and it will take you to the landing page for all of all of this research and others that are in progress here at TRB.
This is fascinating. Mm.
So
Mhm.
last section is going to be on careers. Let me go back up. Careers in transportation. So if you look into the right-hand corner, we have, hopefully it's coming, hopefully colors are coming through on your screens. The
They
dark
are.
black, cool. The dark black is traditional career paths. So kind of traditional career paths that persons go to university for if they're going to go into a career in transportation or at a transit agency. Kind of engineering, civil engineering, or is a big degree that is pursued. Public policy, urban transportation planning, and urban planning, excuse me, are other degrees that are pursued for persons that work at transit agencies.
Mhm.
If we look at kind of the dark orange careers at agencies, um, these are, I don't want to say non-traditional, but these are careers that people go to school for, and either their niche and they know they want to, for instance, a degree in human resources, work in HR. However, they want to work at a transit agency. Kind of, but most of the time, people just fall into the careers of agencies as you hear or
Mhm.
learn throughout your career. So we have human resources. People go to school for law. There's legal counsel at agencies. Information technology is becoming a growing career at agencies for the past couple of years, dealing with cybersecurity, accounting and finance, marketing these services. So marketing is also good. Marketing, you can go to school for marketing, but we can work at a transit agency in your own community and help them market the services in these new technologies to the community. And going back
Mhm.
to the human resources, that's where workforce development, kind of going back to the theme, workforce development kind of falls under the human resource umbrella. So what agencies are, like I mentioned, having challenges with the workforce shortage gap. So I haven't taken any human resources classes, but I would hope the human resource classes today are identifying new tools and solutions for attracting younger workforces, not just in transit, but in general. So you can go to school for human resources and apply what you learned and help transit agencies solve the workforce shortage problem today. And lastly, careers in demand in the blue. So these are kind of some of the careers that are hot in demand that agencies are looking for today. And even some of these careers, I know bus operators, dispatchers, maintenance technicians, and customer service, quite a few agencies are offering incentives, hiring incentives and bonuses, anywhere from 1,000. I think the highest I've seen is $5,000 signing bonus to come on as a bus operator, dispatcher. So these are some of kind of and maintenance technician. These are some of the kind of the careers that are in demand in transit agencies. And I will also caveat too that these careers necessarily don't require degrees. I don't look down on
Right.
persons who have degrees and don't have degrees, but
Mhm.
if you don't have a degree, if you don't think going to community college or achieving a 4-year bachelor's degree or or achieving a master's or PhD is not for you, you can get picked up by a transit agency to be a bus operator. And there's also, I don't go I don't go into detail in this presentation, but even starting out as a bus operator or mechanic or dispatcher, there are opportunities to move up in your agency, even if you start out as entry level as one of these roles.
Mhm. Mhm. And then Jamal, I want to break in on that. And then there, you can earn while you learn. Okay. And
Um,
so it may not be that you want that degree or that you need the degree exactly when you start, but you can plot your career out and say, oh, over the next 5-year period of time, next 10-year period of time, seven, I'm going to on that whole thing of continuous learning. As I keep going up the ladder, then I'll and be able to take advantage of some of that tuition reimbursement, okay, that in many agencies just kind of comes along because we are heavily unionized. And so one of the things at the bargaining table almost always is management and labor together is to be able to provide those kind of opportunities so people really can grow. Okay. So a lot of times and because we're you don't think about it when you're in the sector because it's kind of like, well, that's what we do. But if you're not, you don't know that. Okay. And I'm saying a lot of times people don't know those things. This is great.
Good point. Thank you,
Mhm.
Dr. Scott.
No, that's
Um,
good.
yes, and the last slide, and then we're done a lot of talking there. Key takeaways. So, kind of the key takeaways from today's presentation focuses on Transportation Research Board. So I want to reiterate the Transportation Research Board, TRB, or Transit Cooperative Research Program, TCRP, which is a division within TRB. All the resources are free. All the resources that I mentioned today, I want to reiterate, are free and available to the public. I've provided some QR codes. You can use your phone or tablet to scan to go to the landing pages, publications, webinars, not the annual meeting. The annual meeting is not free. But it gives you access to all transportation
Yeah,
professionals from throughout the world, which
yeah,
is good
yeah.
there. And I circle back to the Dwight Eisenhower Fellowship for young professionals out there that are wanting to pursue a higher degree in transportation. That
Mhm.
is a way to get your schooling paid for and get your research paid for, and also opens your network up too. And you're going to also meet other cohorts within your age group, and then you're gonna gain mentors per seasoned professionals within the industry that you can look up to and can give you advice on careers or your next job opportunity. Critical issues in transportation is another key takeaway from this presentation. Basically discusses the innovations that are upcoming on the horizon in transportation and workforce readiness that is needed to implement the innovative transit.
Mm.
Bus of the Future discusses the safety and security, mental health and well-being, incentives, and training that are needed to plan and implement the buses of the future. And the last takeaway from this presentation is careers in demand at transit agencies. I'll go back to bus operators and rail operators are in demand, maintenance, cybersecurity, and customer service. And a lot of agencies across the country are still today, started during COVID, but still to today offering hirings incentives anywhere
Mm.
from $1,000 to up to $5,000 um, to come on as a operator or maintenance employee.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that is my presentation. Oh, last slide is once again, I know I've been harping on technology.
Uh-huh.
You can use your phone or QR or tablet to scan the QR code, and it'll take you to the landing page for TRB, and you can just surf around to get more information about TRB, a parent organization academies, all of the programs, upcoming events, publications, and resources that are available. And once again, all of this is free for you to download and use and observe at your leisure.
Mm.
And thank you today for your time.
Jamal, I just am going to tell you I want to thank you so much because this is absolutely the best presentation that I have seen, honestly, and I've been around for, so many years and been very active in TRB, but putting it all together so that you can really kind of understand and get the sense of it, what all is available. It's just vast. And when he talks about the research is like at your fingertips. You just can't, there can't be there just isn't a better source for what I call that more the deeper research. It's not, you get the quick things, but then also the ones that really take time. And I'm going to say this, you get out of anything what you put into it.
Yes.
Okay. So and I'm going to ask you to like just think about it a minute. And now you've been out here now for 20 years, 20 plus. Okay. And when you think about where you are today, and if you were going to give little Jamal, Dr. Goby, advice, take yourself back in terms of your career 20 years ago, okay? What would you say? Okay, I know my takeaway for me in a career has been don't think that you can't. Don't think that it's so, like, oh, but I'll never be one who gets that, oh, that Dwight thing, I won't. Oh, there's a portal I can go in and say, well, you know what? I think I'm pretty much a subject matter expert from lived experience, okay? Because
Yes.
TRB, will evaluate it. They'll take the look at all of it. So if you're a person who's a transit advocate, maybe you're just going to the community college, or you haven't, but you've been somebody that's been, really out there on the front line, volunteering in your community, really being a part. There are so many different ways that we in life that we punch our tickets. If you see, if you say, don't think that you can't, because I say one thing, you will never hit the home run if you don't get on the plate. Okay, I'm saying. And there have been things honestly that have fallen that I never thought was, they never would have ever thought. Like I fell into transportation. I would have never thought. And just because of a similar type opportunity like this, actually at through Texas Southern University years ago, and a former professor of mine who took the time to say on this fellowship that was going to be in Houston before there was a Houston Metro, he put on it, thought you might be interested, and sent it to me 45 years ago. And I leased a Selectric typewriter, put it on my kitchen table, and filled it out. And the rest of it is history. Okay. And it was never what I was thinking to do. So Jamal, I'm gonna turn it to you for a closing. What would little Jamal, Dr. Scobie, say to big Dr. Scobie now, in terms of, if I had it to do all this is something, this is a takeaway I got in my life journey. And you got a long way ahead of you.
Thanks, Dr. Scott. I would say involvement. Stay involved in your local communities is where it kind of start. What I mean by that is I kind of talked in the presentation. You got to chart your own path, but everyone should have a passion. You got to identify what is your passion in life. And it might not be transit, but we focus here on transit, but find your passion in life. And in your local communities, there's city council, there's any kind of projects probably ongoing that can impact you and your family and friends. You can join local civic organizations, local community groups, and that can be kind of your starting and foundation, which I wish I
Mhm.
did more of, because that can kind of grow your knowledge base on whatever subject matter or whatever you're passionate in. And at the same time, it grows your professional network. Some of my
Yeah.
mentors have always told me that it's not about who you know, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And you never know who you can be talking to or what environment you can
Right.
be in to meet
Right.
or land that next opportunity. And I will say
Yeah.
too, most of my jobs have while I have had to fill out the application at some point in time, most of my jobs over the past 20 years have been word of mouth, or someone reached out to me that I have met in a professional setting or a community
Mhm.
group that I volunteered
Mhm.
in throughout in my younger careers. So like Dr. Scott
Mhm.
mentioned, almost 20 years in, and I've got to a point now where I can just call someone or someone reaches out to me about not just a job opportunity. And that's another thing too. I know we all want money. We need money to live in life,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
a lot of unpaid opportunities lead to your next career or to a paid opportunity. So to kind of in a
Absolutely.
nutshell, circle it back of what I would recommend to Jamal, the younger Jamal, is get out into what I call the streets, not the streets to fight, but get out there into the
Yeah.
streets and into your community and get more involved. I was a very introverted person 20 years ago. I would sweat profusely when I had to give presentations in school. I would not go up to introduce myself to people in the room. So that's another advice I would give too. Go up to meet people. Not everyone is going to accept you or open you with open arms, but I will say 8 out of 10 persons are going to welcome you
They
with open
will.
arms.
They
And
will.
if they can't address your question or help you solve that problem or whatever, most people will connect you to someone in their network that can help
Yeah.
you solve your
Yeah.
problem or address their problem in your community or help you um, get a career or that next role.
Yeah, I so agree. I tell people, I say, there's almost an expectation that you're going to kind of know what you need to know. Okay. But it's who knows you.
Yes.
And people will know you by what you do. Okay. So when I tell you, when you're in a group and there's 150 people and they all sign their name and they in this, but out of anything, I always laugh and say, there are those 10 or 15, 20% that actually are the ones that you begin to see. My God, they're consistent. They come all the time. They say mostly they do what they say they're going to do. They get engaged. Okay, so that's another one we kind of want to tell you.
Yes.
You got to make it this. I have to say, it's like, do you become get in everything, but basically do not too much in anything, or do you kind of focus on this is passion. This is what I really, so there's 20 opportunities I could do to go be in something. I'm going to pick like maybe three or four where I know that if I get in that community group or I'm on that board or I'm on that advisory committee, I am really committed to really to not only just come in but show up. Okay.
Yes.
And do and once people get to understanding that the character, not only are your principles and your knowledge, but the character of who you are is that you're somebody who can be counted on. I swear to God, it does almost become your oyster. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And so that I mean that's the because that it makes a difference. What definitely, but who knows you and who knows you by your works. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And that's where the rub starts coming in. So
Right.
we
Yeah,
hope that
I did have a question, if we
Oh,
have
sure.
time.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, so one thing that I liked a lot was when you were talking about the different involvement opportunities. It was proposing new research topics, to serve as a panel member, to actually conduct the research, and then as well as to serve an ambassador.
Yeah.
Having worked on like the millions of different projects that you have, from like those four different opportunities, did you have like a favorite or preferred one throughout that process that like resonated with you the most?
That's a
That's
good
good.
one.
That's good. That's a good question.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because
I've
like
done.
because I don't consider myself like the best researcher. I'm kind of like lazy in that regard. But like if I get an excuse to present at like a transportation conference, like I'll be there. You know what I mean? So I know like everyone has like different preferences of the process. So I know that it just goes in depth into how many different involvement opportunities there can be in any of these kind of projects. You know what I mean?
Yes, I would say all four have different personalities, and I would say I have a favorite based on whatever different time or age category I am in life. So earlier in life, when I was more introverted, I would like to probably just have a favorite of doing the research, and that's kind of
Yeah.
more siloed. So you just kind of take, you're a researcher. You probably like collecting data, crunching the numbers, writing a report. That you kind of, I mean, you got to interview some people and do some surveying, but for most of the part, you're working alone or maybe with one or two other persons. So if that's kind of your per se niche or your happy place in a career, I would say do the research. And then on the flip side, if you're an extroverted person who likes to talk, I would say serve as an ambassador. So serving
Yeah.
as an ambassador allows you to go to the various transportation conferences and be at a booth. And you have to, I don't want, you're not a salesman, but you have to have like a salesman
Yeah.
personality to where you
Mhm.
have to draw people to your table. And at the same time, you
Mhm.
need to be knowledgeable of the transit innovations and the latest research to quickly, if someone is saying, hey, I work at such and such agency, we're having an issue on, we're trying to we're trying to implement more EVs. We're trying to implement more electric buses, but we're not sure the procurement process or the planning process or how that's going to work. Is there any research out on that? So as a TCRP ambassador, you can be at the conference and you can quickly point them to some of the resources that I showed here today,
Mhm.
and at the same
Mhm.
time be able to talk at a high level of what is the research finding in any of those reports. So I hope that answers
Mhm.
your question, Isaiah.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
fire. Thank you very much.
Mhm. No, it's very helpful. And I want to personally thank TRB because there's so many opportunities. submitted to be able to do, asking if they would support some panels and things that we were doing about 2 years ago. And we wound up with a whole series of them, okay, which were really focused on really helping this program and exposing youth to this and whatever. And it was really, really great. Okay. So and we didn't have to pay for, we didn't have to pay for webinars. We didn't have to do any of that, but we did have to make the application out and get it in, because it's competitive, but we won. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And so you just, we're a living testament that you don't have to be the biggest and whatever, but you know that if it's your passion, you're really whatever, you're going to do quality stuff. And really out of that, they liked it as well, because when they looked at the results of what people liked it, but also 35% of the folks that came out of the ones we had never done anything with TRB before. Okay.
Wow.
And so it was really neat that we also helped with a younger, diverse market to also be able to tap in there, which was really great. It was it was really mutually beneficial. So thank you so much. We're very appreciative. That's it. And we'll be back. Okay. And thank you also for the work on the bus of the future and the piece on the transit worker assault, because those are the two big topics for us in critical conversations this year. May 22nd. Everybody put a circle around it. We're going to wind up having a national webinar that will be on Bus of the Future. And then on the afternoon, we're going to do a national discussion, just a listening session focused on young people. Okay. Everybody's welcome, on this whole issue of mitigation of the issues with transit worker assaults. What do young people think? The youth think would be some of the different solutions, what could be done differently and better. And we'll share that. We'll definitely be able to make sure we share the results of that with with TRB. So thank you. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful, and remember, I think it's Friday, July 18th this year, when we open up with our big rally for Innovation Challenge weekend. We always have the Career Awareness Trivia Contest that is that evening, and that all of these webinars and lunch and learns and everything are the topic. Okay. And so we do our Career Awareness Trivia, and whoever wins that evening is $1,000. Okay. And we don't make everything be just money, but we also want to show the seriousness of this part of the program as well. So get your popcorn ready, because on July 18th, the night of July 18th, we're going to be waiting on you. Okay. So Career Awareness Trivia for 2025 on Friday night, July 18th. So take care. Thank you very much, Dr. Scobie. Again,
Thank you.
always Isaiah, and it is a pleasure. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.